How's it going, everyone? It's another episode of Victory Loves Company, an afternoon edition here on a Monday. Feels a little bit off, doesn't it, Jim? I am James Lynch. He is Jim West. We have an awesome guest here today. Karyn Bryant's going to be joining us from the UFC and ESPN to talk about all types of things. We got a lot to get into. A lot happened on the weekend, and we got a lot coming up here this Saturday as well. But first, Jim, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing good. The whole 1 o'clock thing is kind of throwing me off. It's like my lunch hour. I'm usually getting some food, but I don't want to.
So are you hungry? Are you hangry right now, Jim? Let's be honest.
I'm a little bit. I don't want to shove food in my face right now, but I'm debating whether I want that or I want to take a nap. It's kind of my nap time too, so I'm a little confused.
No worries. Well, you make it through it. I just had my lunch, so I'm good to go. I'm ready to get into it. How was your weekend, by the way? Before we bring on Karyn here, it was pretty eventful. Yeah. I did watch the Ben Askren fight live. I don't know how you spent your Saturday night.
I did not watch it. I would not pay a red penny for that thing. But I hear a lot of people did. I watched the UFC fights, all of them. That's pretty much all I did. I hung around the house.
You didn't watch Askren at all? You didn't watch? I guess you just watched the finish, did you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw the Twitter last 30 seconds thing and played some Yahtzee with my daughter. And hung around, watched UFC fights. Took a lot of naps on Sunday and got ready for the week.
Naps, like plural? How many naps did you have on Sunday?
Oh yeah, I take many naps. Wake up, I eat breakfast, maybe another nap. Hang around a little while, play a little Yahtzee, jump on the trampoline maybe or something. Well, usually my daughter's doing that. And then lunch, then another nap, and then I wake up for the evening.
You got it, man. I did not get a single nap.
I love my naps.
Yeah, no, I can tell. I like naps as well. If I can get time to do them, then I'll do them. But I didn't get to one yesterday. I had to do a ton of landscaping yesterday. If you buy a house and you get a lawn, it's not a good idea because then you end up spending your whole day landscaping like I did yesterday. So we had to get one of those machines to take all the weeds out and kind of do all the stuff. And we just got dirt dumped here today. So we're putting the dirt on top of it after I'm done today, all my work and everything. But anyways. It is, and it's I don't know why I agreed to it, but anyways, let's bring on our next guest here. You know her from the UFC on ESPN. She's also has her own YouTube channel, MMA H.E.A.T. Want to welcome on Karyn Bryant to the program. Karyn, how are you this afternoon? Thanks so much for joining us.
I'm great, thank you. And I've had no naps either recently.
You don't know what you're missing, Karyn. You got to get them.
I got to get them. I will say when I used to live in New York way back in the day, the disco nap was crucial before you would go out because you'd go meet your friends at 11 o'clock at night. So you'd take the disco nap from 7 to 10. You know what I mean? Then get ready or whatever and go out, and it was key.
No, naps are we're all parents here. Naps are essential.
Yeah, they're the greatest.
No, they're very much needed there for sure. Well, Karyn, we want to thank you so much for joining us here. It's great to have you on. A lot's going on right now. Jim and I sort of talked about it there. This Ben Askren, Jake Paul thing. We got to talk about it briefly. Did you catch up on it? Did you see the fight?
Well, I was at work, so we had real fights on. Obviously.
Right.
But I'm lying if I'm.
Yes.
Yeah, but we did find a way to see it. I didn't. It wasn't on my device, so I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. But yeah, we saw what was going down. In fact, I actually watched a little bit more. Well, obviously there was more to watch with Frank Mir's fight, so saw more of that, which was more real, But then afterwards, when I saw what had happened with Ben and Jake. Not surprising, I guess, though.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Robert Whittaker here. He put on a great fight on Saturday, and everyone's talking about Ben Askren instead, which is unfortunate here. What do you make of the whole YouTube boxing thing that's going on right now? I was sort of telling Jim here, I think it's like the present day celebrity boxing. Remember that used to be on Fox? Yeah. It kind of feels like that a little bit. It sounds like it's here to stay. What do you think of the whole thing?
It's weird, right? Because on the one hand, it's embarrassing, it's silly. It's literally beneath all our guys, right? To do this kind of stuff with a YouTube guy. But at the same time, I want my friends to get paid. I'm torn. I really am torn with it because it's a joke. I mean, we all know it's a joke, right? So then what's wrong with a joke? Why can't we have some fun here? Right. Mm-hmm. It's just that when if he starts to if Jake Paul gets a little too ahead of himself and starts to really think that he is a professional fighter, then things are going to get interesting. And like calling out Nate, or the fact that Tyron might, Tyron will destroy this man. So have at it, T-Wood, go for it. I'd love for my friend to get paid, like I said.
Yeah,
but it's like
absolutely.
I don't know, because it's terrible and great at the same time.
Well, and the worst part now is that he just beat Ben Askren. So now people are really going to be out there and think that Jake Paul can beat an MMA fighter, even if they have really good stand-up like Tyron Woodley does. So that's kind of unfortunate part. Plus, there's all this talk of fight fixing and all that. I mean, I'm with you, right, Karyn, because I feel the same way. I think it's good to see the fighters get paid if they want to go over there. Like a Tyron Woodley would make more money over there, in a boxing fight than he would if he went even to PFL. I think he'd probably get similar money, and he'd have to go through win a tournament. Whereas if he goes and takes this boxing fight, it's a one-night thing, and he can get the same amount. So that's sort of where I stand. Jim, what's your thoughts on all this?
Well, I concur with Karyn's initial facial expression.
Yes, I saw that too.
When you asked her to the topic, it's kind of, I did not watch it. I just couldn't pull myself to actually paying for it and watching it. But Karyn's right. It's kind of like a joke, but it's at the same time, it is entertainment. You know what I mean? And if guys want to go over there and beat him up, I hope to God Tyron Woodley goes over there and beats the hell out of him. I mean, I don't blame him. I'm sure a lot of the stuff that Jake Paul does is for the camera. I have to assume, even though I don't want to, I'm going to assume and give him the benefit of the doubt. A lot of it has to do with that. But it's just, I don't know. And then when you see some of the paydays they were getting, I would guarantee that many of the UFC athletes are going, wait a minute, so I don't know. It's an interesting dilemma, or however you want to look at it, at what's going to take place from this point forward. I don't know. Well,
and that's just it. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm with you guys. There's a lot more to discuss here in the combat sports world than that fight. But do we see this as something that's going to be that's viable, that will stay around for a long time? I mean, there was a lot of things that went into that, not just the fights, but we had concerts that can't be cheap. Justin Bieber's performing. Karyn, do you see this as a long-term thing, or do you think this could just be, a flash in the pan? We might get another event and then maybe it goes away.
It all depends on the bottom line for Triller, right? Because they're obviously spending a lot of money, not only on the fights, but the talent that they're booking to be the announcers or whatever that was happening. So they're spending a lot of money, and I don't know how much they're making back. This is definitely the kind of stuff people stream illegally. So I don't know what their business model is. I don't know how, I guess at the end of the day, it just depends on how much money they actually make and keep, whether or not it'll keep going. But it's funny and it's entertaining kind of while it's a dumpster fire, right? I mean, it could keep going, right? We're going to keep having more fighters who are retiring or semi-retiring or whatever, looking to, cash in some more. I think the model of this could definitely keep going. It's just whether or not it's supported financially, because I think everybody just rips it off. I personally,
that is true. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I think as well. By the way, I did watch it legally, but I got a promo code, so I didn't technically pay for it. So I'm kind of happy about that. I'm
disappointed in you, James.
What are you going to, Jim? Come on. If someone gives you a promo code, someone I work for, they were like, here's a promo code. Am I going to say no? Come on. I don't want to spend 40 US. So there you go. So that's how I was able to watch it. But let's switch gears here a little bit. Like I mentioned, I don't want to spend a lot of time on Ben Askren and Jake Paul. I want to talk about you, Karyn. It's been really cool to see, your longevity in this broadcasting industry. It's a very tough industry. I know this myself, coming from television as well. I wanted to know initially, what made you want to get into broadcasting? What led you down that path?
I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know. It's something I just like, to be honest with you, I think a lot of it came from to really compress a long story, where I grew up outside. There really weren't a lot of people that looked like me. I grew up in just like this really preppy little town. And so for people, you know, my mom is Jamaican. My dad was half white, half black. So I have a lot of like mix going on in me. You know, here in America, they just call you black, but you know, I'm a lot of different things. But anyway, so I just kind of really stood out. And so I always had a lot of attention on me anyway, because it was like, there goes the chocolate girl. Like I literally was the only one in town. And I really couldn't avoid having attention put on me. And it kind of became one of those things where, look, if everybody's looking at you anyway, what am I going to do with that? Am I going to try to hide from it? Or am I going to like, well, you guys are already looking at me, like, let me do something with it. And I don't know. It's just my personality. I just ended up being more of an outgoing person instead of an introvert with that situation. But believe me, it could have gone completely the other way and I could have completely ended up hating people, you know? So it just didn't go that way. And so personality, but I got into radio when I was at Brown. We had a 20,000 watt commercial station. So I literally would go do morning drive radio for 3 hours before I would go to school. I had a double major. I would go to school and then I would, you know, do all my schoolwork and stuff and get up early and do the radio show. Then I became like program director. I was doing afternoon drive. Like I forget what year I ended up running the radio station. And from radio went into MTV, from MTV got into other kinds of broadcasting. So the sports part of it came out of me covering entertainment stuff initially. I've always been a huge sports fan, and Showtime Championship Boxing was looking for a reporter at the time. I was available, it worked out, and here we are.
It's crazy, actually. I used to work at Fight Network years ago. This was about 10 years ago. And we used to get stuff from IGN Sports, and I remember you seeing you on there. So it's cool to see, you know, I remember you from back then to seeing you now on ESPN. You talked about some of the challenges you had, obviously, you know, a lot of barriers that you had to overcome. Did that almost fuel you as well, just to say, hey, I'm going to prove all these people wrong that say I can't do this. I'm going to really show them up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that does have a chip on my shoulder, but the other shoulder is sad a lot of the time because I don't get opportunities that other people get, right? But like people are gonna be like, oh, you're complaining. It's not a complaint, it's just a fact, right? So the problem is like when a person like me states a fact, people say you're complaining. It's like, well, you asked me a question.
Right.
So I'm gonna answer it. But yeah, you know, I you know, at the beginning, there's a lot of people that are, you know, oh, go back to the kitchen, or, you know, if you go back and look at comments on early videos, it is kind of funny, like the stuff that people say, and, you know, that you're like, okay, well, I'm going to stay. I'm not leaving. I'm going to keep, you know, I'm going to stay here and keep going. And then you can see like those comments, you know, fall off. And those are the kind of things that it didn't really take, I guess, that long for those kind of comments to go away. But, you know, there's always going to be somebody saying that, you know, you don't belong, professional fighter, even though there are men that are covering the sport that weren't professional fighters. But, you know, just because, you know, whatever, it is harder, but like that didn't stop me. So, yeah.
Who are some of your influences, like in terms of people that you saw on air that, I don't know if you wanted to emulate them, or people that inspired you to get in there? I know for myself, there's a handful of people that sort of made me want to get in and do this. Was there anyone like that for you on television or in radio that really inspired you?
You know, not so much, right? Because a lot of it, like, I didn't really, there wasn't anybody I watched when I was growing up, like, I want to be just like them. But if I'm honest, it's really more like Dave Letterman. And that's who my ideal, like, I've always wanted to do the Dave Letterman show, but it's Karyn's show, you know? So I've endeavored, and I'm still working towards that goal. That's my dream, is to have a late night talk show. So for me, that's he is like that whole old, you know, like going way back, if you look at old like Johnny Carson and you look at all these old things, like it's about the host, right? And I forget if it was like a Carson, who said it, I think it was Carson, but like, you know, if you're the host, you should try to make the person that's your guest feel good and look good. And like, it's not about you, right? Because if the show's called the Karyn Bryant Show, like you probably get to come back tomorrow. So you don't have to prove every single night and step over your guests that you're the best, right? Try to make them look good, and then people will feel good about you. So that was kind of the ideal in my mind. But for sure, like the Letterman kind of sense of humor, that kind of stuff is my ideal.
Well, you see it in your interviews. It's actually funny you mentioned that, because I'm sort of reverting back to how Letterman is with his guests. He's famously known for, getting the most out of his guests. And there's, we can go on YouTube right now and find like 100 clips of David Letterman really getting the best stuff out of there. Do you feel like that's part of your success as well, as the fact that you get these fighters on a different level where they're comfortable enough to talk to you? I remember your early interviews with Gegard Mousasi, who's one of my favorite fighters to watch and to interview, and just seeing the rapport you built on so early with him. How key was that in your success as well? Just having the fighters, be very relatable to you.
Yeah, it's funny because Gegard and I are great friends, right? And so somebody tagged me in a post or shared one of his interviews from 10 years ago that we did. And so then I'm tagging him, and then we WhatsApp, like we're buddies, you know what I mean? And those are some of my favorite memories in the world, interviewing him, because it is so fun. But the funny thing is yeah, I do think I'm able to get out of people, and sometimes your critics will say like, "Oh, you're flirting with them." I'm like, "No, I'm not flirting." My husband's holding the camera, so I'm not flirting with this dude. That's just who I am. That's my personality. That's who I am. And so it's funny because when I interviewed Vladimir Matyashenko one time, and we went to a Russian restaurant, we had some vibe. This literally his manager after is like, I had no idea half of that stuff. He's like, I managed the guy. I had no idea. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, now you know. And so, yeah, I do think it is a skill that I have, but I also really work towards that. Like I don't, as much as people are competitive about what they do and the athletes are competitive about their sport, like I'm competitive about an interview when I go into it. I'm like, I'm going to crush this. Like I'm going to make sure this person feels good, and I'm going to make sure they have a good time. And to me, it is important. And I really do try to set people at ease and get them in their comfort zone, just so that they can show the best version of who they are. That's really what it's for.
I tell you what, Karyn, if there's one person that doesn't like interviews at all, and loves doing interviews when she gets the opportunity of doing it with you, is Aspen. She does not do interviews.
She's so shy.
Yes, but she's like, oh, if Karyn ever wants to do an interview, I'll do that. But she's it's so if you get her to talk, what you can that's a feat.
Yeah.
Well,
Jim, do you remember the first time you met Karyn?
Because I remember interviewing her one time, and she just seemed it was really nervous, and it was early on, in her career. Yeah. And I do feel that sometimes, and I'm like, okay, maybe this person just really doesn't want to be here, and maybe we should just wrap this up because they don't want to be here and they're too nervous. But it was at the beginning, so I'm glad to hear that, because I would love to talk to her, because she's not only a great fighter, but she just seems like an interesting girl too. So
she was so shy there at the beginning, but now she's very because I don't remember when it was, but she's like, there's certain people you want to do interviews with, right?
Yeah. Oh, I would love
you being one of them, right? And it's just kind of funny to see, because she doesn't, she's just shy. She's an introvert, but she said, I'll do an interview with her. And that's kind of
all right. Let's do it.
Pulling stuff out. Yeah. It's kind of cool to see though.
Cool.
One of the other things you do, Karyn, obviously, is MMA H.E.A.T, which is a YouTube channel that's been around for a very long time. I know this because I remember watching it from the very, very beginning. And I know you've had a different, bunch of different co-hosts, a bunch of different shows. The latest one with you and Angela Hill, great show. I see all the feedback you get. Seems like it's going very well. How has that been, just sort of growing that channel while also having your duties as, being a commentator for the UFC?
Yeah, it's been interesting, right? Because, having MMA H.E.A.T, and if people look, my Karyn Bryant YouTube channel, there's literally I want to say 1,600 clips or something like that, more than that, from everything from interviews to workouts to all kinds of stuff. So a lot of them are on my Karyn Bryant channel, and some of the things are on the MMA H.E.A.T channel as well. And that is something that, was built up from 2007. And it's a funny thing, because I think a lot of people get into MMA coverage now. They see it pop in, and they want to get involved, and they expect to get in right away and have a ton of viewers and have all this stuff. It's like, well, no, it's going to take a while. And there's this incredible library. People go in and dig in and have fun with that. But doing the new one with Angela, so Alan Jobin and I were doing a podcast for a long time. I'd initially started with a friend of mine who was a comedian who unfortunately passed away. Alan and I did a bunch of them, and we kind of were like, both of us were just we just felt like trying something new. So I wanted to do something with Angela. She's a lot of fun. We have a similar, vibe and energy, and also it's an underserved idea. Like, you know, a lot of the shows are just men, no offense, or, you know, it was me and Alan, we were trying to do some things, but it's a market that isn't served as well. So it was like, hey, you know, we can do this. She's a professional fighter. So I don't think it's a show for girls, because that's definitely not what we're doing and not what we want to do at all. It's still, you know, insiders giving information, but we just have a little bit of a different take. And maybe we will focus on some of more of the female fights that other shows maybe wouldn't focus on, but still we're not by any way chick show or whatever, but it is a lot of fun, and people have told us like they didn't know certain things, like, because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes it ends up feeling like girl talk, and you're like, well, Robert Whitaker's whatever, and you know, and like we'll talk, and then people are like, I had no idea about all this inside like the tea stuff. So if anything, sometimes I have to be careful that I don't get too comfortable with the girl talk part of it. But it's challenging to cover up, you know, to cover your real job and do all this other stuff. But to be honest, I used to be busier over at FS1 because we had UFC Tonight. I had Tough Talk. We were just doing other shows. So I was busier over there. And then we had UFC Now. But a lot of the production got moved to Vegas when we got switched to ESPN. And so there's still a lot of growing pains. It sounds weird, but you know, now we only just had that studio at the Apex for a few months and stuff. So hopefully more of that will come back. So in the meantime, I'm trying, because I used to be a lot busier and I like to be busy.
Favorite interview of all time? I'm putting you on the spot here. What's one that really stands out to you? Maybe most memorable?
Quentin, of course, Rampage.
Okay. I figured as much. I had to ask anyways. I had to hear it from the source. Okay.
Well, what about the worst?
What
about the worst? The one he just was mortified after.
Jim, you don't want to put.
Well, there was one with. In hindsight, now you're kind of like, well, there was one with Mayhem Miller where I was like, really, dude, like really. You know what I mean? He was being like really adversarial and just not cool. And we had done other stuff in the past that was fine. But then now, you know, in hindsight, you know that he actually had some mental issues going on, and you know, so it feels a little different. But the Rampage one is the most fun because I need to say, like, he never touched me. All these people think that like, oh, Karyn was okay with, you know, with sexual harassment. Like, no.
No.
At all ever, but we are friends. Like, it's funny to me, and it's one of those things where people are mad at me for not being mad. Like, people are really upset that didn't bother me, and it didn't bother me because he didn't touch me. My husband was holding the camera and we're friends. Like, that's why it didn't bother me. But so, and it's funny as hell. It's just straight up funny. But one of the interviews, I won't say it's the worst, but I remember not feeling good about it because, like I said, I'm competitive about interviews. The first time I interviewed Dominic Cruz, and I remember walking away because he's obtuse, right? He's obtuse, and I was like, I don't know if that went well. Like, what? Ooh. You know, I didn't know. And then, like, I didn't realize he was telling jokes. I didn't realize all this stuff because his sensibility is just a little different, you know. And then once you get to know him, and once I did a few more interviews with him, I was like, oh yeah, no, it went fine, and that was a joke, and that was this and that. So I would say the most hard to kind of get a read on.
Yeah.
Before we dig into the UFC card this weekend, we had some news with Invicta, which was pretty interesting. I wanted to get your take on it. They're now with Access TV and Anthem Sports and Entertainment. Just your thoughts on the move to television now coming off UFC Fight Pass.
I think it's great. You know, unfortunately, we lose the property on Fight Pass, but for the women to get more visibility and to be on television, I think is a great thing. Like, you know, that's one thing I do think is a bummer about it's a bummer and it's not a bummer, but you know, the whole switch to apps and everything, like there was a sense of just channel surfing back in the day, right? And just coming across something that like, oh, and finding it. And the way that television works now, you know, it's all you have to go to specifically where you're going. I mean, granted you can I cruise through my YouTube TV or whatever, but you know, it doesn't quite feel the same. But even still, I think that the television platform still gives that, it's an extra sense of like you've arrived, you know, and so for them to have that platform now, I think is great. And if you know more women are able to get in the spotlight, and you know there's more weight classes over there as well, so I think it's great. I mean, and look at Shannon's been working hard for years to build that, and so hopefully she got paid also, you know, really well. So I think it's great.
Yeah. I do as well. Jim, I haven't actually asked you about the deal since we've done the show, because it was announced last week after our last show. What are your thoughts on the move over there?
Well, I love it. I mean, I think it is more visibility. You know, especially in the USA, because Access TV is a pretty popular channel here. I think it's big. I mean, you know how I feel about Invicta as it is. I mean, I love it. I think it's fantastic. There's a reason why all those athletes from Invicta, when they go to the UFC, they're actually good and they're successful, versus those female athletes that go to the UFC without going to Invicta. You know, I just think all around it's fantastic. I can't wait for the first one. I talked to Shannon the other day a couple times via text just about the whole thing and some other stuff, and I know she's super excited and happy with how it went down. So yeah, I love it.
I'm just hoping they can get streaming in Canada. That's my only concern, because actually we do get Fight Network.
Well, it's going to be streamed.
Well, yeah, it is, but
it's going to be streamed on MMA Fighting, right?
Oh, is it really? Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool.
It'll be streamed internationally, MMAfighting.com, but in the US, it'll be on Access TV.
Very cool. Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's
Great.
good to know. Well, let's talk about UFC 261. A big card. I feel like we're still getting over the hangover of everything that happened last weekend, but this is a great card. It's stacked. A lot of implications for a lot of the fights. So I wanted to start while we have Karyn here on the flyweight title fight between Valentina Shevchenko and Jessica Andrade. The implications for this are big in the sense that, you know, Andrade is now in another weight class. It's her opportunity at another title. She came up short, obviously, in strawweight. Actually, she won the title in strawweight and then lost it, so didn't get much of a chance to be a long-reigning champion there. But just your intrigue level, Karyn, on this fight because of Andrade, you know, having this knockout power, it does seem pretty interesting with the matchup with Valentina this Saturday.
It's definitely very interesting, but you know, to me, you know, Valentina is bulletproof. I mean, the bullet, you know what I mean? It's like, there's no weakness, there's no hole, there's no, you know, I was saying this to Angela, like, I feel like with Valentina, it's just, you know, the whole on any given Sunday thing, or like if you roll the dice 10 times, you know, 9.5 times she wins or whatever. Like, not that she's unbeatable, because everybody's beatable, but I just think that she's just so secure in every single area of the game that it's very difficult to find a way to beat her. But I do think knockout power is maybe the equalizer there, right? So Jessica can do is land a knockout on her. She is so powerful, and she's not afraid of getting in there and mixing it up. And that's the thing. Maybe it'll become a dogfight, and that's her best chance. Maybe. I mean, the thing is, you think maybe we should take Valentina down. No, she's got submissions too. No, I mean, like the path of least resistance. I don't know. I guess the knockout is maybe the way to beat her. It's very intriguing, though, because I was in China when Zhang Weili was fighting Jessica Andrade, so I was sitting there octagon side. And so, yeah, that power is a real thing. And, you know, I don't know, but Valentina is just so good, and she's so comfortable being the champion, and that she really just owns that space. I find it such an uphill battle to beat her.
I agree. And what's so interesting for this fight is Valentina's like a -400 betting favorite, which is actually pretty low, because typically she's more in the thousands when she's fighting her opponents like, you know, Jessica Ai or Jennifer Maia. So it just goes to show you that this is a bit of a more interesting matchup, I would think, because Andrade does have the power. Jim, do you see it that way as well, where, you know, Jessica does have sort of a puncher's chance in this as opposed to maybe some of her last couple opponents, obviously excluding Amanda Nunes? She's in her own category, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how do you go against Valentina, right? Like, how do you go against it? But I guess I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate.
Bring a friend? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, I think, like Karyn said, I mean, everyone's beatable. I think it's just hard to find that way to beat them, right? Like, and there's, you know, I do think that there's been times and several different opponents, whether it was Juliana Pena, although she lost, or whether it was Jennifer Maia, although she lost, there were things that happened in that fight that you can see where she is and can be vulnerable at times, right? Everyone has small vulnerabilities, and it's just exploiting those things are super hard. You know, Valentina's such a timing fighter because she's such a Muay Thai fighter. They have to find that rhythm, and once she finds that rhythm, you're almost damn impossible to get her out of it. So, you know, Jessica has to get her out of that rhythm right away. She has to almost be and try to be the bully, and she can't be scared going into the fight. Like every other female that has gone into the fight against Valentina, you can tell they're scared. They're already beaten. And I think those things those attributes Jessica does have. I don't think she's going to be scared. I think she has the to utilize some of that type of strength advantages. Maybe not be an advantage, but she has the strength. She has the ability to knock her out. She has that ability to grapple. But I think the biggest thing is if she can keep right away, not be afraid, and be able to disrupt Valentina's timing. Because Valentina, once she gets into that timing, which doesn't take her long to get it and find it, you might as well just, I mean, I don't want to say you want to cash it in and just, stop, but I don't know how you beat her when she finds her timing. So I think she has to be able to utilize those things. I think she has the ability to do it, but am I going to vote? Am I going to root against, or not root against her, but bet against Valentina? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree for sure. It's a very interesting fight, and it's one of 3 title fights. The other title fight we have, which is the co-main event of this card, is Zhang Weili, like Karyn alluded to there, taking on Rose Namajunas. Just first, Karyn, this is just sort of my theory. Why did this fight take so long to book? My guess would be that they wanted fans for this one because Zhang Weili obviously has a huge audience. Obviously, that's a fight you would want to see with the crowd because they do have the same manager. I would imagine the negotiation wasn't that tough. What's your take on why this fight took so long to put together?
Yeah, no, and I know there were some, for a while Rose was injured, or there were different concerns, and then also with COVID, I mean, that's, there were family, like as they were dealing, I believe Rose lost some family.
She did, yeah, you're right.
I hopefully I'm not misspeaking, but I think there was some COVID things too, that there was some stuff to get over. Yeah. I mean, it is the perfect fight to have fans. To your point, yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe they just were trying to put it off as long as they could. I'm not sure what. Maybe even there were just some hangups trying to get Zhang Weili out of China, because before didn't she have to go train elsewhere and be gone for a while? So it could have just been a hiccup wise with the international crisis going on over health concerns and stuff. So maybe that's why. I'm not sure, but I'm glad they did book it. It's going to be. Yeah. I tell you, it was amazing to be in China though, to see her win, and earlier in the night, the Li Jingliang had like this crazy fight, and it was awesome, and it was so cool. It was like she's such a nice girl too. Like they're both awesome. I've known Rose since before she was in the UFC, since she was like 18 or something, and so I just love that we have. They're such great martial artists. So I don't know who's going to win. It's also a very challenging, intriguing matchup. I'm just saying, I'm glad that we have such a solid representation from Zhang Weili, from somebody to really kind of bring the world into the sport. I think it's great.
Jim, what are your thoughts? Karyn mentioned it there. It is a very close fight. If you look at the odds, it's I think Zhang Weili, a bit of a favorite, but not anything crazy. It's just a slight favorite in this one. Jim, how do you look at this fight from a coaching perspective? Because I think Rose is being counted out a bit here, if I'm being honest.
I think she is too. I think I'm going to go out on a limb. I guess this could be a limb. I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think if the Rose that fought Joanna twice is there where she was mentally and just good with herself and good with everything that surrounded Rose, I think she's going to provide a really, really big problem for Weili. And I'm going to go ahead and say that Rose is going to get it done. I think she's going to get it done. I don't know if it's going to be, a decision type thing or, finish her. I don't see Rose necessarily finishing her, but I do believe that Rose will be able to, if she comes into the cage that night where she was when she fought Joanna and had that aura about her. She was in a good place. You could tell she was in a good place. The people around her were very supportive of her and just that whole thing. And I think Rose, with that, coupled with the fact that Rose knows how to control distance fantastically. And I think those two things can put Rose over the top against a very, very tough Weili.
And she's also a bigger submission threat than some of these other women have been. So
yeah. No, really excited for that one. And then of course the main event, someone I know you know very well, Karyn, Kamaru Usman going to be defending his title against Jorge Masvidal. Before we talk about the fight itself, do you find that this has lost a little bit of luster in the sense that I feel like some people maybe felt like, Masvidal shouldn't be the guy fighting Usman next because he is coming off the loss to Usman in his last fight. Do you get that sense, or am I out to lunch here? Tell me if I'm out to lunch. I don't mind.
Yeah, I think Jorge has a great fan base, so that's why he's back. To be honest with you, I'm a little surprised it's him again too. Like, but I get it. It makes sense because it was such short notice for him before, and that's not the Masvidal that we know and love. You know, we didn't really get to see the guy that we wanted to see, and so I'm glad we are running it back because I want to see the fight again. But in turn, like I want to see the real Jorge get to fight him. But you know, I mean, but it's tough though, right? Because Leon just reintroduced himself, and now it's weird because he didn't get to fight who he should have fought. And even though, you know, it looked like he was turning it up, you know, as the fight with Bilal was going on, the way that it stopped, it kind of like, well, how good is Leon? You know, people aren't as familiar with him. So to put Leon in the spot, you could see why they'd be like, yeah, people just aren't ready for that. Leon needs to kind of build himself back up again. So Jorge is the one with the guaranteed puts butts in the seats. And out of all the people that are available, you know, he's the one with the biggest following. And it's not that he doesn't deserve it. It's just that it just does seem a little maybe fast. Yeah. But
do you think it had something to do with that Kamaru wanted it?
Jesus got that swagger. Are you going to say no to him? Come on.
And do you think Karyn, do you think it had something to do with the fact that I think Kamaru really wanted it? I think it's something he wanted, and I think because he's
that's it too, right?
You know,
yeah. There's something to build there. There's some story there. Yeah. You know, yeah. I mean, and it helps with Kamaru to have a backstory and a storyline, right? I mean, we know that some people don't really appreciate him as a champion. And some people might misinterpret what he meant about the 30% thing. And so there are some lingering things sometimes where people, I think, don't give Kamaru enough respect, and, you know, he deserves more. So I think that's a little bit of the issue. So I think by giving an opponent that people maybe either have an investment in more so, or that Kamaru personally has a beef with, does help sell an Usman fight more than just saying, okay, yeah, Usman versus Leon, because that's the dude that deserves it most. I think it's nice to have a little bit of an extra like spit on the name that he's fighting, just to give it a little bit more heat.
Completely agree. I like how you use the word heat there, by the way, with MMA Heat. But yes,
was that a little subliminal push there, Karyn?
I mean, it was,
a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, no, for sure. Jim, do you think this fight goes any differently in terms of the results? I don't know many that are picking Masvidal here.
Man, I mean, you know, it's so hard. You get some of these champions that are so dominant, right? The Kamarus of the world, the Valentinos of the world, you know, the Amanda Nunes of the world. It's hard to pick against them, right? Because they've proven over and over again they can adapt to anything in any situation that is brought to them, and that's why they're, you know, multiple defending champions. But I do think that Masvidal has the tools that can present a problem for Kamaru, right? I mean. He did some things really well against Kamaru in a fight that he took on 6 days notice. So I think he's going to build on those things. I think those things are going to come into play again. But I think it's going to be hard. I think if Kamaru doesn't allow the emotion to get too involved, you know, in his plan, I think he wins again. But I do think it's going to be, if not as competitive as last time, or more. But it's hard for me to pick against Kamaru, especially if he just doesn't, if he keeps his emotions in check, because I know he hates the guy. And sometimes you know.
Well, he kept the emotions in check against Colby, right?
Normally wouldn't do.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. And like, yeah, he's shown that he can do that. But I think, you know, I think those will things that'll come into play. But I think Kamaru's game is very good at what he does, and it's hard to stop, right? But. So yeah, I'm not gonna pick against him. I'm gonna say Kamaru's gonna win, but I think it's gonna be ultra competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Last thing before you move away from UFC 261, Karyn, I know something you've been pushing for a lot, and I know I'm glad you bring it up because it's something that I think will happen eventually. But the UFC to Africa, you know, we have Kamaru Usman winning his title, and obviously we have Usman, who I would assume is going to win this weekend. Have you been hearing anything? Do you have any insight onto that? Because it seems like now would be the best time to do it, as we're slowly getting back to having crowds.
Yeah, I haven't heard if it's really happened. I mean, it's something a lot of us have talked about because, you know, there is the over there, which has been put on shows in South Africa for years. My friend Ruan Potts was the heavyweight champ over there. You know, he came to the UFC as well. But like Dricus du Plessis is from South Africa. JP Bays is from there. Like so there are some people from South Africa where they have maybe the infrastructure to already be putting on these shows. But yes, to be able to, like, if you could go to Kenya or Nigeria or Cameroon, like that would be incredible. Obviously, we have Moroccan fighters on the card on the roster. So there actually is a lot of talent from Africa that people don't. You know, it's not just the Francis Ngannou's, you know what I mean? There is actually a lot more people from the continent that could represent Africa. I think it would be incredible. Like, I don't know. I think it really comes down to infrastructure to be able to put on UFC shows in different places, right? So I do think that there's a lot of people inside the organization with all those champions, with Israel and all this, really pushing for it to happen. I so hope that it does. And with the PI over in China, building talent there. Like if there's a UFC PI in Africa or something, like the amount of talent that could get created and mentored would just be amazing. I mean, it would just be incredible. So I do hope that opens up, and I hope that something like that really becomes a realistic option, because I think it would just be so cool. It's so fun going places with the UFC when they've never had a UFC show before. So on that one, I'm like, I hope I get that assignment, you know, but like I got to go to Sweden the first time we were there. Like we took the UFC the first time over in St. Petersburg and Copenhagen, and like to see the crowd, like especially if you go out during Baba O'Reilly and you watch the crowd, watch that highlight footage, like to see them get so excited and just to be in a place that's never had a UFC show. I feel like, oh my God, I feel like if we went over to Africa, it would be the total Ali jogging behind it. Like I feel like it would just be the biggest love fest over there. I hope it happens. I hope it happens.
Amanda, we got a couple minutes for questions as we're about to wrap things up. We actually have Dino in the chat. Yeah. He was mentioning about the change in management, just going from Fox to ESPN. I think that's what he means here. Any difference? Karyn sort of talked about, obviously the workload's a bit different, but any other major differences you've noticed?
Yeah, I mean, I can't get into like corporate secrets and stuff, but within reason, I used to be busier, so I can't say that it's been all great for me personally. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean the way that we do a lot of this stuff is the same. You know what I mean, in terms of the shows and stuff like that. There's just different budgeting and different job assigning from the new people than from the old. That's what I would say there.
And then that's probably the typical thing that happens. You know, when you get a company that now owns outright different. What's that? You know, they want to bring in their. So I think that's one of the things that happens oftentimes in any business. You get now they own it 100%. Oh, I'm going to bring in my guy. I'm going to bring in my girl, and I'm going to put it here. Right. And, you know, time will tell with that.
Yeah. We got another question here. Yeah. You're reading my mind, Amanda. This is why Amanda and I work well. So together, this question, describe how it was standing between Usman and Colby at the ESPN desk. Do you like being a part of those intense interactions like that one? that was crazy. I could feel the intensity through the TV screen. So I can only imagine how you were feeling, Karyn.
Yeah, that was intense. Like we were saying after the fact, we were like, man, I wish I had preloaded some popcorn like under the desk, right? Because you imagine, like, you know, because Rashad and I were like, oh, it's popping off. Like, so we knew that it could get intense, right? So that's why there was all that extra security. And also, you know, the Trump sons were in the building. So there was like the whole day, there was just kind of more, you know, more edge, you know, to a lot of the things that were going on. And so, yeah, like that was pretty intense. You know, I actually, in a way, almost felt bad for Colby at first, because I was like, hey, come on over here. Like, if you see at the beginning, I'm trying to guide him in, because you could tell, you know, he had just beaten Robbie Lawler. I mean, yeah, that was Robbie Lawler, right? That was a big deal. And he was still adrenalized and nervous and this and that. And I'm like, dude, come on, you know, come on. I'm trying to get him into the frame more. And he's agitated, but you could tell that's real emotion between the two of them. So that wasn't like, okay, guys, we'll script this thing where you say this and I say that. No, it was 100% real. And yeah, no, it got pretty intense on both of their parts. And I know from working with Kamaru, like, I know, you know, I talked to him about it. Like, I know what bothers him. I know this and that kind of stuff. And you can see when he really is getting frustrated and mad and whatever. And that was 100% legitimate. It was fun. It was fun to be there. I mean, luckily they haven't come to blows ever. I did work one time over at the studio with and Mike and Don got into it, and that was a little awkward. but yeah, it can get pretty intensive there. But I do want people to know that, yeah, we don't fabricate those moments. Those are real. Like even, the old one when they were on the headsets with Tony Ferguson and Kevin Lee, or with John Jones and Anthony and stuff like that. Like that stuff was never fabricated. It was all real.
We'll take one more question here from Dean D. The one about the late night host. I wanted to get to that one. Does Karyn Bryant have a favorite late night TV host right now? Conan O'Brien is still number one for me. Who's yours favorite right now currently?
It's not necessarily a late night, but I do love John Oliver.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a huge John Oliver fan. I think he's incredible. But I mean, I guess yeah, I mean, that's the one I would watch the most right now. I don't know. I love Conan though. Conan is incredible. I'm from Boston too. Like that. Who have I been watching though on the more? Yeah, I mean, I like John Oliver's sensibility, but I also do love Stephen Colbert, like his wise assness. But yeah, I haven't actually been watching as much of the late night shows as I should be lately. I don't know. I'm just trying to build my own.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. That's all that matters. We are all done for time here today. Karyn, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Anything you got coming up on the MMA Heat channel this week that you want to let us know about, or anything else you want to plug, we'll give you the last word here.
Yeah, well, we just put out a new What Had Happened Was podcast, me and Angela. So you can go to my YouTube channel, YouTube.com/Karyn Bryant. And we also have it up on her IGTV. And we, talk all about like who should be next for Whitaker. I mean, for Izzy, should be Whitaker or Marvin Vettori. But, we talk a lot about Jessica Penne's return because Angela was in Jessica's corner. And so she also trains with Jeremy Stevens. So we have a lot of our main event and stuff. And we talk about, how the girls really missed weight, like really bad, and how Zara missed weight, bad. So when we talk about that, so that's the most fun. But like I said, I have some other things. But for now, What Had Happened Was is what I would love people to check out.
Awesome. Make sure you watch this show every Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll be back in a regular time slot next week. I believe we are. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. For Jim West, for Karyn, for myself, and for our lovely guest, Karyn Bryant. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week.
Thanks, Karyn.
Thank you.